Greetings, YouTube. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Troy. If you're new to the channel, I'm a former fat guy sharing my story with the hopes that it might help someone else. If it helps one other person, it was worth it. If you support me in that, what I ask is that you subscribe to my channel. Doesn't cost you a thing, but it means the world to me. So, in today's video, we're going to talk about body transformation. I lost over 100 pounds of body fat, and if I can do it, anyone can do it. And, it's all about former fat guy fitness. I'd love to hear what's going well for you in the comments below. And if you're a person who is just getting started and you have an uphill battle ahead of you and you feel like maybe even you're in a place where the odds are against you, or maybe it's an insurmountable challenge, what I'm here to tell you is that, number one, you're not alone. Number two, it's probably not your fault that you are where you are, right? And number three, you can overcome whatever it is that you're facing. You can reach your goals in 2025. But the invitation would be to consider that instead of focusing on our goals so much, which can be kind of ambiguous, right? Like even if we have a weight loss goal, let's say, like, okay, I feel like that's a decent, entry point for someone who's seeking body transformation, but I would want to whittle that down to maybe saying like, hey, you know what, instead of weight loss, how about fat loss, right? Because no one wants to be skinny fat, but it might be something that you don't even consider. Like I said, if you're kind of just like floundering in the beginning and you have no point of entry. But shifting our mindset away from like that goal-oriented focus, the purpose of this video is to talk about considering like implementing habits and systems and really focusing on that, because people, it's good to have goals and aspirations and that stuff is good, but people fail to reach their goals all the time, right? It's around New Year's and we see people with these New Year's resolutions that just kind of, people fail to reach their goals. But when people focus on systems, right, and they just force themselves to do the thing every single day over time, what happens is that it becomes a habit. And a habit is something that you kind of just like do without even thinking about it. It's almost like a subconscious programming. It doesn't have to be bad. We think of habits as being like, oh, I got this bad habit, I smoke cigarettes or whatever. And when that's happening, I'm doing that without even thinking, right? I wake up and I smoke a cigarette just because I woke up, or I have a meal and I have a cigarette. I'm at work and they encourage it, right? Because if you're stuck in the cubicle, they let you go smoke a cigarette on your break every hour. So it's just like, it's a reason that you can, and so you're smoking those cigarettes. You're not even thinking about it. And it's a habit, it's a program, but you can install healthy habits and programs in the same way. And when you do that, here's the awesome thing, guys. Remember, it's about mindfulness. And what that means to me is paying attention to the story that we're telling ourselves about ourselves. And really what we're talking about is identity change. So one of the easiest ways for you to be successful in your body transformation journey in 2025 is to change your identity right now to that of being one of the person that you want to be. So if you want to be that former fat guy, right? That fat guy life is in your past. And I lived that life, right? I know what it's like to have big floppy man boobs and a big, spare tire love handles that you just, you feel you're disgusted with yourself. And that's not a good feeling to have. And that's identity, guys, right? The fat guy identity. I may as well just eat this. I'm a big fat piece of crap. Oh yeah, second slice of pizza? Sure, I may as well just eat it because I use myself as a garbage disposal. Yeah, I'm a fat guy. Give me all, right? That's a story that you're telling yourself. Whereas if you tell yourself, no, I'm the former fat guy, right? The former fat guy doesn't eat pizza. He says, no, the former fat guy has bodily autonomy. Right? It's up to me what goes into my body, and I'm not going to be swayed, or at least I'm going to recognize when I'm being swayed by some of those outside external noises. Food noise, guys, right? But there's a lot of other stuff out there too. There's a lot of bad advice. And to be honest with you guys, I would have never lost the weight if I wasn't so fortunate and blessed to have access through a friend at the time to the internet. If it wasn't for the internet, I would have never lost the weight. But these days it's not so much a lack of knowledge. You probably know what you should be doing. And just like for whatever reason, maybe there's some things that are blocking your progress. So I thought we could talk about that a little bit in this video. And remember, it's about the story, right? The story that you're telling yourself about yourself. So in your story, why wouldn't you want to be the hero? And if you know anything about what they call the hero's story, which is sort of like a framework that they use sometimes for like marketing, what I noticed when I was studying that was that it very closely like mirrors or mimics the person who's going through a weight loss journey. So the hero's journey is very similar to a person who's undergoing body transformation. And so something to consider, and it's just sort of like a mind experiment, is the invitation, since to be a hero, right? A hero has to have like a villain, and we're going to call it the enemy. So if the hero of our story is trying to undergo that body transformation type journey, what would the enemy do to stop that person, right? And I want you to look into the mirror right now, because if you're having trouble on your body transformation journey, you looking in the mirror? You looking? Okay, good, because that's your enemy. That image you see in the mirror right now, the one that I'm looking at on this screen, is the one that's stopping you from getting to where you want to go. That's the bad news. The good news is that pretty much that really there's not a whole lot else working against you actively. It's you versus you. So what would your enemy do? And we'll talk about it a little bit. And I'll just kind of use some examples from my life. But number one, if I was trying to get in shape, my enemy would make sure that I was eating lots of processed food, right? We talk about that food noise, those really sweet and those really salty and that high fat content and the very processed, highly palatable foods. We could call it junk food, right? But my enemy would make sure that I was eating that, right? The hero in my story would focus on whole foods, kind of bland foods, right? The hero of my story would understand that what I'm eating really makes a big difference in terms of how I'm able to progress on my journey. We're all different. I'm not going to tell you what to eat. I will tell you to experiment with whole foods, single ingredient foods, bland foods. Focus on protein. Focus on fiber. Experiment with fats. Okay? And do that in a way that feels right for you. Stay away from those processed foods, those loud foods. Food noise, right? You got to quiet it down. And the way that I do that is by doing what the hero in that scenario would do. Next, TV for hours every single day. TV on the couch, 3-4 hours a night of television. People say, I don't have time. When you ask them, hey, why don't you go for a walk? Why don't you hit the gym? Why don't you exercise? This, that, the other thing, meal prep, on and on, research, whatever. I don't have time. And oftentimes, when I talk to that person and I just kind of get an idea of what they have going on in their life in terms of what their schedule is like, that person is watching a few hours of TV every single day. And if you're doing that, you do have time. And, maybe you could watch a little TV, take some of that TV time and allocate it towards something else, or just get rid of the TV entirely. I've lived without a TV for several years, right? Most of my life, and I'm fine, especially with the internet. If I want to find something out, I can look it up. I don't need to sit in front of the TV because I'm not creating anything. I'm not moving towards my goals. I'm not moving towards anything that I'm trying to do. I'm being fed stuff. And the TV, what I notice for me is it's very useful for when I'm trying to numb, right? After a hard day's of work, nothing feels better than just sitting in front of that TV and just letting my mind vegetate, right? But I could spend my whole day in that cubicle and come home and sit in front of that TV and numb, and then pain in the cubicle, numb in front of the TV. And I'll never get myself out of that cubicle if I keep coming and sitting in front of that TV, right? I gotta do something else. I can't just keep cubicle, TV. And so many people do that. So consider, if you're watching that much television, try cutting back on it, allocating some of that time towards reaching your goals. Next, skipping the gym. It's okay to take a day off, but what my enemy would do is my enemy would make sure that I'm not going to the gym at all. Because once that becomes the story, right? The story I tell myself is, usually I just skip it. And it gets to the point where now the story is, I don't really go to the gym anymore. And that's not the place that I'm trying to be. I want the story to be, I'm the type of person who works out most of the time. And things come up, I can't make it. I give myself some grace, right? Don't beat myself up. Don't let that affect my story. The story is, you're the type of person who works out most of the time. And you give yourself grace and you give yourself rest periods when necessary. Next, my enemy would make sure that I'm worrying about the office when I'm at home. And this one is personal, guys, because this happens to me. We live in our head a lot, right? And it's the opposite of mindfulness. And when we're worrying about what's going to happen in the future, like work tomorrow, or when we're living in the past, right? And we're thinking about how uncomfortable and horrible it was when we were at work before we got home, then we're never experiencing the present moment. And that can be very detrimental because it really drains our energy and takes away from anything else being able to be allocated towards the thing that we're trying to do. And if that's tone up, and if that's, maybe eating a little bit less or starting to make some modifications in terms of our diet, that takes energy, and it's not easy to do that, particularly in the beginning. And so we need to find a way to protect our energy. And so we want to try to stay mindful and try not to live in either the future or the past. Next, my enemy would make sure that I didn't meditate. Because what I notice, and what meditation is, it's different for everyone. There's many different types, right? What I'll use what's called a breath meditation. So I'll set a timer for like maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And what I try to do is I just try to focus on my breath only. So I'll breathe in through my nose and I'll think, breath. I'll exhale and I'll think to myself, breath. And then thoughts will come up and certain things, my mind will wander. And when I notice that that's happening, I'll just try to imagine myself letting that go and I'll bring my attention back to my breath. And it seems a little woo-woo, guys, and I understand that, and it's not for everyone, but what I notice is that when I have the discipline to make myself do that, particularly in the beginning of my day, that little 3 or 5 minute investment, that makes it feel like I have more time in the day just because I end up feeling like my thoughts are better ordered, better organized, something like that, and everything goes smoother. Right? Or I'm more resilient in the day. Something about the day feels better to me when I force myself to do that thing first thing. And meditation is not my favorite thing. It feels uncomfortable to force yourself to sit there and to do that. And you're like, I have to hurry it. It's 3 or 5 minutes, right? And like I said, the invitation is to try it for yourself, see what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that in the comments. Next. My enemy would make sure that I lean into comfort. The comfort crisis, guys, right? So I'm making this video from the United States. And Americans are big and fat and soft. Sorry, guys, but we are. And it's because we have it so good, right? And if you're watching this on the internet, congratulations, you're a rich person. And so it's more likely that you suffer from ailments of abundance, right? Too much food, as opposed to, ailments of lack, like starving, stuff like that, right? If you're watching this on the internet, you're probably not starving. And people starve, and that's tough. But more people, particularly in America, are eating too much food. There's too much access. And perhaps, right? Because humans have, I'm not a scientist, but I imagine humans have been around for a long time, and maybe humans have had to endure difficulty in the past more than we have to today. So we never really get to push ourselves. And that might not be great for us. What I notice is that when I lean into discomfort, right, in the form of like cold exposure is one. Another one is fasting. Another one is exercise. When I push myself a little bit, I feel like I get some type of evolutionary reward. It makes me feel good in a way that maybe I can't explain. But again, the invitation would be to consider leaning into discomfort in a way that feels right for you. That's what the hero of the story would do. Next, the enemy of my story would make sure that I'm following the crowd. Follow the crowd. Be a good little sheep. Do what everyone else is doing. Every time I do that in my life, I suffer. And I think to myself, what am I even doing here? I don't belong here, right? And when you go along with what everyone else is doing, you're going to get exactly what everyone else is getting. And look at the people around you. They're all fat, sick, and unhappy. So if you want to get out of that, you have to do something different. And it's hard because as soon as you start to go against the grain, you're going to encounter some resistance and some friction there. And so you have to develop strategies for buffering yourself against society. But I'll tell you what, it feels better to suffer the pain of going along with your intuition as opposed to fighting against it, fighting a battle with yourself in your head all the time because you're doing what you feel like society wants you to do and you suffer as a result of that. So it's your choice. You can go either way. You can follow the crowd like a sheep or you can be a lion. And that's up to you in 2025. Next, staying up late. It sounds silly, but the invitation would be to consider researching what they call circadian rhythms and being in tune with light and dark cycles of the sun and understanding that everyone is a little bit different in terms of some people are night owls and some people are early risers. And the unfortunate thing about modern industrial society is that shift work forces people to live contrary to their natural cycles. And what my enemy would try to do is my enemy would try to disrupt my natural cycles so that I'm not getting sleep. So that, well, how do you guys feel when you don't get sleep, right? Are you able to exercise? Does it make it easier or harder for you to make good food choices? Like, what are your moods like? What do you think it does to your hormone levels? Things like sex hormones, blood sugar, cortisol, stuff like that, right? Like, I'm not a doctor, but I feel like sleep deprivation can rob you of your life and vitality, your energy. Energy is the currency of life. And if you're not getting enough sleep, you are going to suffer a lack of energy, a lack of life, and probably a shorter life, all right? My shift workers out there, I'm so sorry, guys. Find something else to do. It's killing you. All right. Circadian rhythms. Do your own research. Try to adopt a way of living and being that is in tune with natural circadian rhythms in a way that feels right to you, following the laws of bioindividuality. Next, My enemy would make sure that I tried to please everyone else. People pleasing at the expense of myself, right? Oh, hey, Troy, it's Karen's birthday. We have cake. Oh, aren't you going to have some cake? Oh, what? You're not going to have some cake? No, I'm not going to have some cake because I don't want the cake, right? Bodily autonomy. You're not going to pressure me into putting something into my body that I don't want to put in there. Now, this happens all the time. It happens with alcohol. It happens with food. Oftentimes, our loved ones and the people who care about us are the ones that we could say sabotage us, right? But the reason, they're not doing it to us. We are doing it to us. And the reason that we're doing it to us is because we're trying to people please. And people pleasing at our own expense is very silly because the benefit to doing that, the people that we're trying to please, they are operating on their own sort of like programs, right? They're probably not even noticing. And even if we offend them, who cares? Right? Who cares? They'll move on to the next thing. We will have to suffer the consequences of eating the cake for the next 3 days. Who knows what type of floodgates that could open for us? The downstream consequences are not worth it. It's not worth people pleasing, guys. Too many times we sabotage ourselves to people please for 2025, right? Let's go our own way. Next. No one's coming to save you guys. My enemy would tell me, hey, you know what? Someone's coming to save you. Wait for that. Don't wait. Don't wait. You can be successful, but only if you start right now. The best time to start was yesterday, but you can do it if you start now. If you wait, if you think that someone else is coming to help you, how many times have you asked for help and that help ended up just being so incredibly toxic and unhelpful that it prevented you from actually taking any steps forward on your own? I would be willing to bet that that has happened to you. It's happened to me, and I learned my lesson. You know who's coming to help me? Me. That's it. And that's the only person who's coming to help you. You. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you'll start making progress towards your goals. It's up to you. You can do it. The battle is in the mind. Guys, it's so important that you know yourself, right? But with that, you also have to know your enemy. And you have to know both of those to give yourself any kind of chance, right, in battle. Whether or not you should even do that battle, right? You should always be weighing this out. But it might help to think to yourself like, hey, what would my enemy do if they were trying to prevent me from reaching my goals? Remember, maybe we should not focus on the goals so much as we should about those systems. Look for the low-hanging fruit. Maybe implement a system that you like, right? If you want to start working out this year, maybe what you should do is each day you go to work out, you should start with the thing that you like. And just tell yourself, you know what? I'm going to force myself to do this for 3 to 5 minutes and see where it goes from there. It's all about the systems. Make it a habit. That'll help to make that new identity become a reality. And 2025 is the year you guys can make it happen. You got this. Thank you for watching the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.